In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to use the blur filters, which consists of field blur, tilt blur, and iris blur. And I'm going to start off with field blur, and I'm going to use this photo. You want to make sure that you have two backgrounds, or your second layer of background, because if you just use the one layer, you can really mess up your picture and you won't be able to get it back. So to do that, you can just either right click and hit duplicate, or you can just do the easy way and click Command J. So what you want to do is you want to come up here to filter, make sure your layer 1 is selected, and you're going to go down to blur, and the second box is going to come out, and you're going to click on field blur, and a box over here is going to come up for you to mess around with the stuff. You're going to get these little pins. They start you out with 1, and you're able to move it around wherever you want. And there's also this little white going around the circle, which controls how much of your picture is blurred. You can either use that, or you can come over here and you can use this lever over here. And if you want something to be precise, you have the ability to type it in, and I'm gonna go to 18 pixels. And then I want to move this one right down here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another pin up between these faces, which all you have to do is click to add another one. And if I take this blur down to 0, then it's going to focus on the faces, but it's going to leave it blurred down here, and it blends in between these two pins as to whatever the number is. I'm going to move it up a little bit, and then I'm going to add another pin over here so the blur over here is even as it is over here. But what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to come over here and type it in to make it even. That way they're not uneven, because if this number is a lot bigger than the other one, then it's going to be really off and not look good at all, depending on the type of whatever you want it to do. So I'm going to come back over here and type in 18 again, which is going to give me the same amount of blur down here on the bottom, and it's going to keep our faces focused. And I'm going to move it down a little bit just so it focuses a little more out on the ocean, so it's not as blurred. I'm going to move this one down a little bit too. And this way you have just the faces and your background isn't distracting you from them. And up here you can go back to what your original picture was in the preview button, and then you can click it and see what it's going to be now. So when you hit OK, then it's going to take a minute to load, and then it shows you your final product, and you're good to go. Now I'm going to use this picture to teach you how to use the tilt blur. I'm going to Command J so I have my second layer of background. I'm going to come back up to these filter drop box, and I'm going to click the third one, which is tilt shift blur. What this does is it gives you your pen, which also controls the blur that you want on the outside. You have these two solid lines in the middle, and in between those lines your focus is very sharp and there is no blur whatsoever. And then between the dotted lines and the solid lines is where it starts to fade out and get blurry, and then outside of the dotted lines is where it's completely blurry. You have the ability to move these lines individually too. Like, they don't move together, they just go by themselves, and you can move these lines too, your solid lines, if you need more space in your picture to be sharp. You can also get your mouse here so you have that little half circle with the arrows, and you're able to tilt this if you want it to go every which way. And this gives you the ability to change if you want your picture to be blurred at an angle, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tilt it this way, and I'm gonna move it down so the bird is sharp, and I want part of the water to be sharp to give that a little more emphasis on where the bird is at. So I'm gonna move it out. I'm gonna move this back a tad, and I'm gonna move it up a little bit so there's more blurry down at the bottom. What you have over here is your distortion, which really does nothing. Okay. You have your blur thing over here in case you didn't want to do the circle again. And you can tell the more you go up, the really blurry it gets. And what the distortion does is it tells you how much of how you want it to blend in between the dotted line and the solid line. So the higher I go up, the more sharpness there is in it, but the lower I go down, the less it's blended as well, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this out even more. That way I have more of the ocean in my picture. And I'm going to move this out a tad more. I'm going to turn it some more so I have a better angle. I'm going to leave it like that because I have my emphasis on the bird and I have some emphasis on the water so I can tell where that is. And that's really all I need. And this is good if you have stuff in the background that you don't really want there. So if there was like stuff over here or a ship out here that I didn't want, this would be a really good filter to use in this situation. And I click OK, and it's going to load, and there you have your picture. This picture to teach you how to use the iris blur. I'm gonna once again do Command J to get my second layer of the background. I'm gonna come up to the filter drop box and go to blur, and I'm gonna click the middle one, which is iris, and I'm gonna get my box over here and my pin in the middle. What I want to do for this one is I'm gonna emphasize and focus onto my tennis racket, which is pretty much the main point in this picture. I have some tennis balls and shoes in the background along with the net that I want to blur out. And I'm given a oval-ish shape for this one, and I have the ability to move around like I want it to. I can make it a square, or I can make it more of a big oval. And I have the ability to make it larger, and I can rotate it as well, make it the angle to go to match my tennis racket. So I want to move it a little bit. And I have these dots in the center, and I can move them wherever I need them to. And what they do is they help with the blurring of, or the blending of the blur. So the more it's blurred in the background, if I bring these in, the blur is going to come in even farther than if I just leave it out here. And it gives it a better look for the blending than it does if it was just a sharp edge and then blur. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it blurry, but not too blurry because I still want to be able to tell like what the background is. And even with this, I am capable of adding another pin in case I wanted to emphasize maybe on my shoes as well. And this one starts as a circle, so I can it's easier and it's not just an oval. So, and it starts out smaller too, so you don't have to worry about it. And then, oh, I don't want that one. And if you don't want a pen, you can just hit the, make sure it's selected and hit delete. Now I don't want my shoes to be emphasized in this, so I'm going to delete it as well. And now I have just my simple tennis racket is focus, and you can't really see a solid line of where it's blurred at, but you can tell when it gets back here that it's blurred and the tennis racket is focused. So that's what you want to do. You click OK and you let it load for a minute like all the rest. And there's your picture.